Ray Epps comes out with a lawsuit because he feels that there's another way to interpret. We have to make sure that we go inside the Capitol, at least when it comes to Fox News. So we'll be talking about what's happening there, what this means, and what the government is going to do about this. In other news, a Michigan salon owner has refused to serve the T, part of the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU, sometimes Y community. And we'll find out why and what's going on there. And the Michigan AG coming in and weighing in the situation. So we'll go over some of that, what's happening there, and what we do with that. Kevin McCarthy is in the hot seat again with Freedom Caucus members threatening to carpet bomb the GOP agenda over the fact that they're not getting concessions on the culture war, so we'll go over some of that. And Evanston, Illinois begins dispersing a $10 million reparations package, $25,000 to each resident. It is going to be all of this and more. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Ladies, drink free. We have your evening news to go over here today. Again, not a hugely busy day. I've been noticing the news has been slowing down. Like, once we got Mar-a-Lago raid, and once we got the classified documents raid, and basically until we get something out of either January the 6th, which we do have something about that today, but not the evil orange man leading the January 6th rebellion and insurrection and everything else that they try to throw at us. I mean, it's really hard to go really any further. They can't cover Trump rallies because he's packing houses. They can't cover DeSantis because he keeps goofing off. And they can't really cover Biden because he keeps goofing up as well. But we're going to get through what they have brought to us. A little bit of culture war stuff today. I don't usually do a lot of culture war stuff. But as slow as the financial and the economy news has been, that's really up on the forefront. So we're going to go over some of that today. We'll be talking about Kevin McCarthy being in the hot seat for not giving in to the culture war as much as he should. And by the way, we've also got a conservative alternative to Amazon that is launching today. So we'll be talking about Public SQ, which I think is supposed to be short for Public Square. We'll be talking about that. We'll see if it's viable. We'll see where it goes and what happens with that. And a bunch more here tonight over on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, get some snacks, get some friends in here with you, and let's get down to it. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, and Clown Road Chronicles with Papa Palpatine. Go check out all that great programming as we aim to bring you a better news experience. From the common man for the common man. Stop getting your news from people who hate you and who wear suits that cost more than your houses. Get your news from people who are just like you. And with that, let's get down into it. Let's get started. And we're going to start, as we always do, with the Dow. It's get the live chat up here. Do feel free to live chat and weigh in on what you think on the news stories here. And what I do love reading the live chat here. We don't do a dedicated segment at the end of every program, but we do go through some of the live chat throughout the show as well. So air your grievances. Tell us what it is that you think, and we will read. And by the way, also, tell me what it is you're having for dinner tonight. I love to hear that stuff, and I might even snipe some of your recipes as we go. All right, let's get started. Horatius is here. I haven't seen Horatius in a while. Mogwai is here. News is waiting on Sweeps Week. Well, we'll see what's happening with that. All right, let's get into it. Let's get started. Starting with the Dow. The Dow is at 347.43, spending most of the day up on slowing inflation news, which we will have a bonus economy article on that, talking about the inflation and the fact that it is dropped to 3%, so we'll be talking a bit about that, but it did settle off throughout the rest of the day, ending the day only up 86.01 points after being ahead more than 100 earlier on in the day to 34,347.43. Looking at your Bitcoin, that is at $30,350 even. That is down on the day, $276 and 50 US cents, or just shy of 1% on the day. It did have a building rally earlier on in the day before falling off and falling below the previous close. So some of this also happening with the US dollar and seeing what's happening with the markets on that. Looking in at the Madison area, we do have a few outliers coming on the outset, saying 340 with the 320 still sitting there. So it looks like your gas prices are probably going up. Check your local listings and see what your gas prices are and see where you can still get some of the cheaper gas, but it might be time to go back and top off right now. So not official financial advice, I'm just saying that it's getting to be about that time. We do have some 316 outliers, of course, but 340 seems to be the new regular, which means that, well, prepare to see a 20-cent jump in your area. Our finance article today. Yeah, I understand that entirely. Night streams are harder for me to do, but I work at 7 o'clock in the morning now. 6:30 at this point. I start work well before I even started Contemporary, so unfortunately, but you can catch us on Spotify, Contemporary with J. Edgar. You come back and join the show over there. Not join the live conversation anymore when you're on the audio platform. But I'm doing a recording right now, so as soon as I am off air, I switch it over to the audio format and put it up to Spotify. I don't think I signed up for Pandora, but we're also on Apple Podcasts and Google Play as well, so go check out all that. Let's check our finance article for the day. The S&P 500. The NASDAQ closed at highest level since April 2022, buoyed by colder than expected inflation report from Ha-Kyung Kim and Alex Herring. And it looks like Microsoft will not be taking over Activision, which means that Blizzard is free to do the stupid shit that we always do. Or that they always do, rather. But let's read here. Stocks rose Wednesday after the new data raised hope that the Federal Reserve can bring down inflation without pushing the U.S. economy into a recession. The S&P 500 reached a new high for 2023. The broad market index advanced 0.74 to end at 4472.16. The Dow traded 86.01 points higher, or 0.25%, to close at 34,347.43. The NASDAQ popped 1.15% to 13,918.96. The S&P and the NASDAQ closed at their highest level since April 2022. Bank stocks jumped on Wednesday. Citigroup and Goldman Sachs saw shares climb 1.8% and 1.7% respectively. Regional banks also saw gains, with Comerica adding 3.1% and Zions Bank Corporation jumping 2.8%. The Consumer Price Index rose 3.3% on the year over year in June, which is still outrageously high. Economists polled by Dow Jones expected a 3.1% increase. Month over month, the index rose 0.2% last month, also less than forecast. On top of that, core CPI, which strips out volatile food and energy prices, which are still rising significantly, rose less than expected. I think it's a good report. Inflation is going the way the Federal Reserve wants it to go, but I don't think we're ready to say that we're going to be able to cut rates, said Megan Horniman, Chief Investment Officer at Bird Capital Advisors. there are still three areas of the inflation that the Fed's looking at very closely: service inflation, wage inflation, and housing inflation. All three of those things, while they are moderating, are still uncomfortably high, Horniman said. June data for the PPI, another well-watched gauge of inflation, is due Thursday before the bell. Both indices are being watched for tea leaves on the path of inflation, which investors see as potential harbingers for how the central bank will move interest rates going forward. The market is pricing in an approximately 92% chance the Fed raises interest rates in the July meeting, according to CME's FedWatch tool, which, by the way, I believe is coming up in the next week. So that is what we are at for that. A bonus one on the inflation side from the Hill: inflation keeps falling, is what they're calling it. It's still up 3%, but it's falling. From Sylvan Lane and Eris Folly. Prices are still rising, but at the slowest annual rate in 2 years and barely moving higher on a monthly basis, according to data released Wednesday by the Labor Department. But by the way, it's still compounding on top of 9.1% from last year. The annual inflation rate fell to 3% in June, according to the Consumer Price Index, falling from 4% annual rate in May after prices on the whole rose just 0.2% last month. After peaking at 9.1% in June of 2022, the annual inflation rate has fallen sharply over the past year. The combination of rapid Federal Reserve rate hikes, unsnarled supply lines, and a nosedive in energy prices have erased some pressure on the household budgets while prices are still rising. The slower rate is cause for optimism that the worst of the inflation is behind the U.S. Again, the Hill is lying to you. It's still rising and it's compounding on top of the oppressive rates that we had last year. Prices for everything from eggs to used cars dropped in June, causing the big deflation in inflation. But one measure, inflation, is just a third of what it was a year ago, said Robert Frick, corporate economist with the Navy Federal Credit Union, in a Wednesday analysis. Yes, our prices are still up 15% over a combination of 2 years. But never mind, hey look, it's falling back down. However, this is not yet a turning point, Frick continued. Core inflation will prove tougher to beat. The overall inflation rate is within striking distance of the Fed's goal, but core inflation, which strips out food and energy prices, is an annual rate of 4.8%, still well above the bank's target. So, that is what they are saying for that. Let's look at our layoffs report today. Not a series of layoffs this time. I mean, we've got enough of those coming, and nobody knows what Microsoft is going to be doing here. But Twitter is sued because apparently, after their big layoffs, they didn't pay off what they were supposed to. Twitter sued for $500 million in severance after massive layoffs. From Brian Nemitz. A class action lawsuit filed in San Francisco claims Twitter owes $500 million to employees cut loose after Elon Musk acquired the platform last fall. Former employee benefits head Courtney McMillan filed the lawsuit on Wednesday. According to Reuters, she lost her job in January and is reportedly owed 6 months base pay per a severance plan implemented in 2019. The suit alleges Twitter workers were promised 2 months of base pay plus a week of compensation for every year that they were employed. McMillan claims some workers received only a month of severance, while others got nothing. When contacted for comment, Twitter responded with its now standard poop emoji. Nice. The company's public relations department was one of many casualties after Musk took charge. Twitter has been besieged by embarrassing technical issues, a shortage of advertisers. It also faces unprecedented competition from new social media platforms, including freshly launched Threads, which is boring as shit, by the way. I have Threads, mainly so I could secure my username over there. All I see is e-thoughts that really don't have anything to say without pictures of their ass next to them. I don't even bother opening it anymore. There's nothing of substance on Threads. McMillan's lawsuit comes 3 weeks after a class action suit filed in San Francisco accused Twitter of stiffing thousands of workers out of bonuses, according to the Associated Press. That suit, brought forth by Twitter's senior director of compensation, claims millions of dollars are owed to former employees. Twitter has also struggled to pay rent on office spaces and cloud storage, according to reports. Fortune reported in June that the newly hired CEO Linda Yaccarino was working to fix the company's accounting nightmare. So that may be a part of the reason where some of the problems were. We don't know what's happening there, and, well, Twitter doesn't usually let people look in to what they're doing here. But one of the other layoffs reports coming. We've got a bonus layoff report today coming from CNN Business. This CEO replaced 90% of its support staff with an AI chatbot. From Anna Kubin. The chief executive of an Indian startup laid off 90% of his support staff after the firm built a chatbot powered by AI that he says can handle customer queries much faster than his employees. Sumit Shah, the founder and CEO of Dukan, Bangalore-based e-commerce company, said on Twitter on Monday that the chatbot, built by one of the firm's data scientists in 2 days, could respond to initial customer queries instantly, whereas his staff's first responses were sent after an average of 1 minute and 44 seconds. The average time taken to resolve a customer issue also dropped by almost 98% when they interacted with the chatbot, he tweeted. Shah said the job cuts were tough but necessary. A reminder that this is coming here, because so many of these people keep demanding a higher wage and a higher wage and a higher wage. This is coming here. If they can make a reliable enough chatbot to be able to do this and stick with it, you could start to see entire HR departments gone. Customer support staff gone. Powered instead by a chatbot who is programmed specifically to know the answer constantly. So this is not necessarily a current layoff report, although, I mean, in India there were a bunch of layoffs, but this is a warning. As you demand new wages, huge wages, unionization, etc., they now have the technology to automate you. Just a reminder of that. And that is our finance report for the day. Let's get into the main news. We're actually going to, before we talk about Ray Epps, we'll be talking about something that actually was breaking as we were on air yesterday. And I didn't even catch it because, well, we were on air. But from the New York Post, extremely high Caesars Palace hostage suspect caused $50,000 in damage at Vegas hotel room. Yes, somebody apparently, while we were on air, about 6:30 p.m. Central Time yesterday, took a woman hostage in a Caesars Palace hotel room, complete with a police standoff. The man accused of holding a woman hostage for hours in a room at Vegas's iconic Caesars Palace Resort caused more than $50,000 in damages and was extremely high on drugs at the time, according to a police report. Matthew Mannix, 35, was arrested Tuesday after a tense 6-hour standoff with police, during which he taunted them by repeatedly opening and closing the door and telling them he had a gun while threatening to pull the trigger, according to a Las Vegas Metro Police report obtained by KLAS. Police told reporters on Tuesday they responded to the scene around 9:15 a.m. after hotel security reported that Mannix had pulled a woman into the room by force during an argument. The Colorado fugitive threatened hotel security and police, telling them that the situation would end badly if they refused to leave. When has that ever worked, by the way, in the history of mankind? A woman's voice could be heard yelling through the door, "He has a knife," according to the report. Video recorded at the scene showed him throwing furniture out of the 21st floor window. Betcha that made a big boom as it hit the ground. That he had busted open, sending guests fleeing from the hotel's pool area, where the objects came crashing down below. The woman in the room, whose name was redacted in the report, was also very high on drugs. Riding that train high on cocaine. Why did I not use that when they found the cocaine in the White House, by the way? Good God. It was right there, too. She and Mannix had been on a days-long drug bender at the time and had been living a transient lifestyle on the Vegas Strip, she told police. Okay, so they knew each other. It wasn't just some random guest that got yanked into the hallway. It's not clear what drugs they had been using. Well, it's Vegas. Take your pick. What drugs were you using? Yes. She said that she and Mannix had an on and off sexual relationship. She believed that Mannix had threatened her with she believed Mannix was an MTV actor, she said. Okay, if you're gonna lie about something, at least make sure that it's still an accurate lie. Is there any such thing as MTV actor anymore? Yeah, Grant pointing out correctly, I wonder if Paddock was on drugs and we'll never really know what happened with him. Well, somebody knows what happened with him, but no, that one's never getting out to the public. I would be somewhat tempted to vote for the big orange spending spree one more time. If there was some sort of promise or guarantee that we could get a closure to that one. During the standoff, she said she didn't leave the room because Mannix had threatened her with a knife. She was also scared that he would throw her out of the broken window. Police said Tuesday the woman was uninjured in the ordeal. After Mannix was taken into custody, police executed a search warrant on the ransacked room. One veteran officer noted the report that the officer saw some of the most severe property damage I've seen in my 18 years as a detective. No. Well, okay, maybe what you've seen, but God, I've never even been on a police force, and I've seen probably worse than what you saw there. While a final damage amount has not been determined, officials estimate the damages to be worth more than $50,000. Mannix had a warrant out for his arrest in Colorado, although the offense was redacted in the police report KLAS reported. He additionally has 4 active protection orders issued against him. I wonder if any of them were from his transient on-again, off-again girlfriend. He was charged in Clark County with kidnapping, coercion with force, or threat of force, with a deadly weapon, destroying or injuring real or personal property, resisting a public officer with a deadly weapon, and disregarding the safety of people and property. So, he has been taken down. We can probably skip the Associated Press because that's just telling us the hostage has been freed and he's taken into custody. We will probably not get closure for this, number one, because it's not big and political and not mass, but we will never get closure from Stephen Paddock. Mogwai says apparently the cop hadn't seen a hotel room after Guns N' Roses stayed in there in the 80s and 90s. Let's see. They told us how long he was on the force. Let's find that quick. Well, yeah, he's only been on the force for 18 years. He's only been on the police force since 2005. Of course he's never seen a hotel room after Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue have been in there. He probably wasn't even born yet when Motley Crue broke up. Well, he might have been. But that is what we get from that. We're going to start our main story today with one from the Washington Post. Why can't the right-wing bubble give up on Ray Epps? This is an op-ed from Philip Bump. And I have to wonder if he didn't take a bump before he wrote this propaganda article. But we're going to look at the propaganda article. To hear Ray Epps tell it, it's Fox News' fault that his life was ruined in at least 2 ways. The first and most obvious is the right-wing cable news channel repeatedly and energetically insisted over the course of months that Epps must somehow have been involved in triggering the riot at the Capitol on January 6th, a function of his purported and non-existent role as a government provocateur. This was mostly driven by former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who mentioned him at least 20 episodes in his primetime show. This attention, rooted in misconceptions, if not willful dishonesty, made Epps a central focus of conspiracy theories. About the selfie fest, he shuttered his business, and he and his wife moved in order to avoid unwanted attention and threats. But then again, it wasn't just the unwarranted scrutiny from Fox News hosts and guests that led to the result. We'll be talking about that later. But the question comes in, and we ask the question always, why can the right wing not give up on Ray Epps? And it might have something to do with the fact that he stood in the middle of DC and told people that the ultimate goal was to go into the Capitol. It might be of the fact that right before the fence got dropped, he was seen whispering into the ears of people who were getting ready to go storm the fence. It might be because as people were screeching into the Capitol, where he told them that they had to go, he was seen slipping off to the side of a stair. It may even be partially because he was on the FBI's most wanted list and then mysteriously taken off. The only person wearing a red hat who has ever been. I don't know what Ray Epps' role was in this. I have a lot of suspicions based on actions taken by both Epps and the government. And especially the fact that these particular clips were the ones that leaked. I do think that he was a patsy of some sort. Do I think that he himself was an actual federal agent? No. I think that somebody came through with him and made a sweetheart deal that he could go out and convince people to go into the Capitol. And then he would get a new life, a new place to live, and be taken care of even without his business for the rest of his life. And of course, all he had to do was get caught on very, very carefully, selectively released pieces of video camera footage. The only pieces of video camera footage, by the way, that were not deleted instantly on YouTube. I've never seen him meet with an agent. I have never seen him take a payment from an agent. But I see a lot of coincidences. And it might be because he has the ability to do this. From NBC4 out of Washington, D.C. Pro-Trump protester Ray Epps files defamation suit against Fox News. My first question of this, by the way, is how long did he judge shop before he found a judge who would be sympathetic to his case? Because, of course, I believe this is happening in D.C. Let's read. No author given. Ray Epps, a Trump supporter who became the focus of right-wing conspiracy theories. Oh my God, they editorialized this right from the beginning. After he protested in D.C. on January the 6th, has filed a defamation lawsuit against Fox News and former host Tucker Carlson for claiming he was an undercover FBI agent who helped provoke a riot at the Capitol that day. In his lawsuit, Epps accused Fox News of telling a fantastical story that he acted as the government-sponsored instigator of the violence that ensued as Congress sought to certify Joe Biden's electoral victory. And by the way, this is the only person who's ever worn a red hat in the history of fucking red hats that the left is not calling to be executed for the crime of wearing a red hat. No, Anonymous, he wasn't talking about you. You're a good cat. Meow. In his suit, we read that one already. The lawsuit, which seeks punitive and compensatory damages to be determined at the trial, argues that Carlson launched a years-long campaign that spread falsehoods that destroyed the lives of Epps and his wife, who now reside in Utah, but were living in Arizona at the time. When did I talk about anonymous sources? I don't even remember. I don't know, I missed that somewhere. There's usually a comment on that. And that is all that NBC4 has to talk about this, but we do have some other articles going over this. From Newsweek, Ray Epps wants jury to decide if government used him to fuel Capitol riot. From Nick Mordowanek. Raymond Epps, a January 6 protester, accused by prominent Republicans and conservative media of being a pro-government plant who helped escalate the Selfie Fest, has sued Fox News for defamation. The 53-page lawsuit accuses Fox News, and specifically its former nighttime host Tucker Carlson, of sowing doubts on the results of the 2020 election and in turn making Epps the poorly cast villain, while the cable network was in the throes of another defamation lawsuit involving Dominion. Epps has never faced criminal charges in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. That's right, because instead he was removed from the most wanted list, abruptly. His lawsuit seeks an unspecified amount of damages and was filed Wednesday in Superior Court in Delaware. Oh, he's going to do this in Delaware, is he? The same legal setting where Fox settled and agreed to pay Dominion $787.5 million in response to claims that the network spewed false rhetoric and information about the 2020 election being compromised. In the same legal setting. Is he going to sit in front of the same judge, I wonder? I would argue a change of venue right there. Brian Farnan, the lead Delaware counsel for Dominion in that suit, is one of the attorneys representing Epps as part of the new litigation. Oh, you don't say! Huh! In the aftermath of the events on January the 6th, Fox News searched for a scapegoat to blame other than Donald Trump or the Republican Party, the lawsuit reads. Eventually, they turned on one of their own, telling a fantastical story in which Ray Epps, who was a Trump supporter that participated in the protests on January the 6th, was an undercover FBI agent and responsible for the mob that violently broke out in the Capitol and interfered with the peaceful transition of power for the first time in his country's history. I don't think he was the ringleader. I know, like, a lot of these editorialized articles want to make it seem like the right wing, the evil right wing, thinks that he's the ringleader. I don't think that he was. Not for a second. I do believe he was involved. Absolutely. There are too many coincidences to ignore. And I would love to actually get a general investigation into this. I hope that we'll pick some of this up on Discovery. I really do. I don't think we will. And I think that there is a reason, by the way, that this took place in Delaware, so a lot of the discovery that comes from the defense will get thrown out as irrelevant. In a statement to Newsweek, Michael Teeter, the Epps lead counsel, called the suit another moment of accountability for Fox News. He said that conspiracies were slandered by the network, and Carlson exposed his client and his wife Robin to harassment, intimidation, and abuse. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you are harassing somebody, you're a bad person. Let the lawyers fight it out. Some of the voicemails allegedly warned Epps to sleep with one eye open, while the couple received other death threats from other FBI agents. While the couple received other death threats and found bullet casings on their property. From publicly available information, it's clear that Fox News was well aware of the falsity of the stories about Ray that it promoted. But was it false? but it advanced its lies anyway for the callous and cynical purpose of creating a scapegoat to deflect responsibility from Fox News' own complicity. Oh my god! Oh, well, this is Teeter. This isn't Newsweek. In January 6, Teeter said, "Evidence gained through discovery will likely prove even more damning than what's currently known." Fox broadcast amplified and endorsed false claims about a rigged election. According to the suit, Epps and his wife were loyal viewers of the network that both voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020. They also used to watch Carlson religiously. That's 3/4 of your problem right there. From the stories they heard on Fox and from their own experiences, Ray and Robin believed that the 2020 election had been completely fair and unchallengeable, says the suit. Ray and Robin were persuaded by the broadcast by Fox asserting the election had been completely fair and balanced and completely nothing bad happened. Honk honk. Remember, even though that's not against the rules to say on YouTube anymore, I'm still being careful with it because when they go and change the rules back, they will go back and start banning channels retroactively. And to exercise their perceived responsibilities as patriotic citizens to gather in the nation's capital on January the 6th to stop the steal. Epps flew from his Arizona home to D.C. in preparation of the Stop the Steal gathering outside the Capitol on January 6th. Meeting with his son and a friend, the ex-Marine was donned in a crisp, brand new, clean, fresh out of the package, red Trump hat. Carlson, perhaps ironically, then focused large chunks of his airtime vilifying Epps, who was just caught on video at the Capitol Selfie Fest, even though the lawsuit claims he attempted to be a pacifist and prevent any breaches from occurring. Yes, that's exactly what he means when he says, "No, we have to go into the Capitol." Testimony from other January 6th protesters, including Ryan Sapsel, backed up Epps' claim when questioned by the FBI in the days aftermath. Due to the false information being disseminated by Fox News by Carlson and others about the 2020 election, the lawsuit claims Epps was made a focal point of interest and continually targeted by Carlson in over 24 segments. Some of those included Carlson himself or guests on the show referring to Epps as a government plant or provocateur. Fox, and specifically Carlson, decided that Epps was the key villain that they needed to distract from the Dominion lawsuit and their culpability for stoking the fire that led to the events of the Selfie Fest, the lawsuit states. No, and that, again, that's not it at all. I've seen this play out a million times. I do believe, again, that there was a level of government involvement in what Epps did on that day. Was he the ringleader? Absolutely not. But when they allow the focus and they only allow one video of one person saying that we need to go into the Capitol to focus on one person, it's easy for them to come back out and say, oh, they're only talking about Ray Epps and they think that he's the ringleader. This is a gigantic load of crap. But again, they went judge shopping and prosecutor shopping as well. Last year, after Epps spoke of his actions to the January 6th Selfie Fest committee, under oath, the House Select Committee dismissed him as any kind of government plant working on behalf of the FBI, with no opposing investigators being able to come back and ask a counter or a cross. And that video was never released to the public either, oddly enough. It was, I think that we did get some segments and some snippets of it, but it was never released in full raw form, as most of the stuff from the January 6th Select Committee were. So he is suing Fox News. And the worst part is he's probably going to get somewhere with it. Because they judge shopped. They found a judge that was going to be friendly to their cause. Somebody who was already taken one peg out of Fox News. And again, if I was a lawyer at Fox, that would be the first thing I'd be doing, is demanding a venue change. If you can win it in Delaware and you think that it's legit, you can win it in Wyoming too. Alright, let's talk Chris Wray. From the Daily Wire, absolutely not. FBI Director Wray denies agency protecting the Biden family. So the head of the federal police department that is headed by the DOJ, who answers directly to Biden, can come out and say, oh yeah, no, I definitely wasn't protecting the person who pays my paycheck. From Tim Pierce. FBI Director Wray denied that his agency is protecting President Biden or the Biden family on Wednesday. Matt Gaetz pushed the director of the FBI's behavior towards the Bidens during a House Judiciary Committee hearing. The hearing was the first time Wray testified on the Hill since Republicans took control of the House. Gaetz began his time questioning by asking Wray about a WhatsApp message Hunter Biden allegedly sent to CEFC China Energy Executive Henry Zhao in 2017. The message invoked Biden's father, then the former vice president of the U.S., in an apparent attempt to pressure Zhao into making financial payment. Yes, we've read the WhatsApp message. Let's listen to Gaetz.
American people need to understand what just happened. My Democrat colleague just asked the director of the FBI whether or not they are buying information about our fellow Americans, and the answer is, well, we'll just have to get back to you on that. It sounds really complicated, but I have other questions. I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
You won't answer the
protecting
question
anyone
about whether or not
politically.
that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you. But
So, I mean, what? No, of course I'm not protecting the person who keeps me on the payroll and pays my paycheck. Yes, I know that I was a Trump appointee. Which that guy had a real problem with appointees from the start. For someone who ran on the concept of drain the swamp. You wonder why I won't vote for him. But that is Wray. Let's do a little bit more on this before we move on to Michigan. From the New York Post. The deceit behind Hunter's sweetheart plea deal gets even more audacious by the day from Andrew C. McCarthy. We'll be talking a little bit more about a different McCarthy later on in the program. The DOJ's deceitfulness regarding Hunter's sweetheart plea deal gets more audacious by the day. Thanks to the media, Democrat complex's partisanship. Is this an op-ed? Yes, this is listed as an op-ed. So the opinions listed in this article, I got like through one sentence. I'm like, yeah, this is an op-ed. Which, by the way, I am tempted to say every time we read something from the Associated Press, too, but this is actually registered and written as an op-ed, as an opinion piece, rather than an opinion piece that's masquerading as an objective news source. So the opinions expressed in this article are the opinions of Andrew C. McCarthy and not necessarily the opinions of the New York Post, Contemporary, Turns of Pages Productions, or your host, Jay Edgar. Let's get back into it. Thanks to the media Democrat complex's partnership, it also gets tougher to pierce, which of course is the point. David Weiss, the Delaware attorney, is in a vice of the DOJ's own making. Yeah, and I mean, Eileen Cannon is not going to be too far off from that either, just so you know. Credible IRS investigators, including supervisory agent Gary Shapley, have reported that he told several law enforcement officials connected with the Biden investigation that he was not the ultimate decision maker regarding whether Biden would be charged, that he was being thwarted by other Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys in D.C. and California, the districts with venue over the tax charges, and that the Biden Justice Department, led by Merrick Garland, had refused his request to be appointed as a special counsel. On the other hand, Garland, who is Weiss's boss, has insisted preposterously that Weiss has always been the ultimate decision maker, and that all he needed to do was ask Garland for any extra authority he needed to file charges wherever he thought appropriate. Garland claims he was never asked. On Wednesday, Weiss tried to squirm his way out of the vice in a terse, disingenuous letter to Lindsey Graham, Mogwai's favorite senator, of course. Lindsey Graham! In a nutshell, Weiss is straining to back up Garland while hoping no one notices that he does not deny the whistleblower allegations. Weiss maintains that he did not formally request a special counsel designation under Section 600 of the federal regulations governing the DOJ. Instead, he claims to have conferred with unidentified DOJ officials about being given authority under a different legal provision, Section 515, for those keeping score at home, of the federal laws governing the functions of the Attorney General, to file charges outside his Delaware jurisdiction. Ultimately, he adds, he was assured that he would be granted Section 515 authority if it proved to be necessary, but implies, though he is careful not to state outright that he never asked, i.e. he says he's never been denied authority to bring charges in any jurisdiction. It's a crock through and through. To begin with, if Weiss were denying accounts of Shapley and at least one other whistleblower, the main IRS investigator on the case, he would say so. He hasn't. He obviously told them exactly what they say he told them, ergo, he either lied to them because he was too cowardly to admit he was undermining the politically fraught Biden investigation, or he's lying now to protect Garland and the Biden DOJ. No. I think if it's the latter, it's not because he wants to protect Garland and the Biden DOJ. It's because if he goes against the Biden DOJ, he will suddenly get a very, very deep bout of depression. So much so that he has to shoot himself in the back of the head twice. Or tie himself to a tree with an extension cord and still manage to shoot himself in the chest with a shotgun that was found 50 feet away. I would call that more self-preservation than preservation of Garland and the Biden DOJ. Just based on statistics and history. If that is indeed the case, of course. Second, the Section 515 issue is a red herring. Such authority would have been relevant only if the U.S. attorneys in D.C. and California had objected to Weiss's filing charges in their districts, but those U.S. attorneys work for Garland and ultimately President Biden, who appointed them. Yes, and that is the case in both of those cases too, by the way. Garland could have ordered them to partner with Weiss on any prosecution, Hunter Biden approved by Weiss and Biden Justice Department's Tax Division. So, it definitely gets interesting the more and more we go down it. Alright, let's talk Michigan. This has been an interesting case, and we're going to use two articles from a very, very left-leaning rag, because it gives us an idea into how this is actually being portrayed from the Democrat media. So we're going to start with Advocate. Michigan salon owner refuses to serve LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU community because of pedophiles. From Christopher Wiggins. Some members of the LGBTQ plus IRAMIGIXTBYMAPIOU, sometimes Y community, have been banned from a hair salon in Michigan in a breathtaking display of ignorance and bigotry. You can see why I don't usually use this particular news source. And this is not listed as an op-ed either, by the way. The owner of Studio 8 Hair Lab, Christine Geiger, said in a Facebook post that she's exercising her rights to free speech. By refusing specific customers her service, she also compared gender diverse people to animals, the Kansas City Star reports. If a human identifies as anything other than a man or woman, please seek services at a local pet groomer, urged the hair salon owner. You are not welcome in the salon, period. The salon's Facebook page was later deleted, and its Instagram profile was set to private. A description of the business on Instagram says it's a private conservative business and does not cater to woke ideologies. A few days earlier, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that a web designer was protected under the First Amendment for building a website for same-sex marriages if she refused to do so based on her beliefs. We're not bound by any oaths to realtors are regarding discrimination. As realtors are regarding discrimination, Geiger's post on the salon's page noted. Gretchen Whitmer signed a bill in March that prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Geiger, who mocked Whitmer in the post, expanded on her bigotry in a comment on a Facebook post in the Overheard in Traverse City group. And this typically, and it's like they put the article here to make it look like the end. I actually thought that this was the end already because they didn't want people coming off of here. I have no issues with LGB, she wrote. It's the TQ+ that I'm not going to support. She continued, for those that don't know what the plus is for, it's for MAP, minor attracted persons, aka pedophile. That's not true and simply is a right-wing conspiracy theory, because we have to editorialize this again. The plus symbol for the LGBTQ IRAMIGIXTBYMAP AEIOU, sometimes Y, does not stand for minor attracted person. The LGBTQIRMIGIXT, this is getting old, acronym is an inclusive term for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, and plus, which includes pansexual, asexual, intersex, two-spirit, and omnisexual sexual identities. As an umbrella term, queer refers to the community of people who do not identify as straight or cisgender, and can also be used to describe someone's non-heterosexual sexual orientation. Well, right, but we're sitting here in a situation where cross-dressers are insisting that they get to do their minstrel show in front of kids, which is typically highly sexualized. And more pushes are out there to get these kids out in front, by force, if necessary, in front of these ideologies, including being in the bathroom with the pervert who can just come out and say, "Oh yeah, I identify as a woman. Now let me into the shower room with your 12-year-old daughter." It was an interesting point that was brought up in the Discord too, by the way, where Midget B had pointed out that yes, it's the LGB without the T. Because so much of the problems that are involving minors don't really have to do with the LG and the B. It's almost always with the T and the Q and the plus. But that's not how the advocate is going to read this to you. Fox News weighing in on this one. Michigan hair salon owner sparks LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIU outrage by banning anything other than a man/woman. From Patrick Hoff. A Michigan hair salon owner says anyone who does not identify as either a man or a woman is not welcome at her business and should instead go to a pet groomer, a statement that sparked outrage from the Alphabet Mafia community. If a human identifies as anything other than a man or woman, please seek hair services at your local pet groomer. A now deleted Facebook post from Studio 8 Hair Lab read, "You're not welcome at the salon, period. Should you request to have a preferred pronoun be used, please note that we may simply refer to you as hey, you." The post went viral after it was shared in a Facebook group for Traverse City residents where the salon is located. This is a real post from a local salon in downtown Traverse City. One user shared in the group with a screenshot of the post. "You're allowed your opinion, but you're not allowed to discriminate." The salon owner, Christine Geiger, took to Facebook and Google to defend her views and business practices, which she said is protected by free speech. "LGB are more than welcome here, however, the rest is not something I support," she posted. "This stance was taken to ensure that clients have the best experience, and I'm admitting that since I'm not willing to play the pronoun game or cater to the requests outside of what I perceive as normal, and this probably isn't the best option for that type of client." The initial Facebook post from the salon account directly acknowledged a law signed by Gretchen Whitmer that prohibits discrimination based on gender identity. "My ass, Governor Whitmer," the post read. So, and I mean, it's an interesting side of things too. Well, number one, you've got the right to refuse service to anybody. They make protected classes to try to keep you from being able to do so. There are a lot of nuances to this as well. Of course, remember greed being eternal, and you should be seeking to get the money from these people whose money spends the same, but you shouldn't be compelled by the government to do so. If you want to turn away cash, that's between you and your accountant, essentially. The government shouldn't have any sort of say into that. But this woman is strong in her convictions, of course, that it's time to protect the kids. And there does seem to be a push towards getting the kids involved in this from younger and younger ages, especially as more identities are added to the acronym. I'm also against covering compelled speech on the pronouns game as well, so... There's a lot to this. There really is. And of course, our friends on the left want to equate this and make this into a thing with the latest Supreme Court decision. Although I'm sure this woman held those beliefs long before that decision was made. And finally, my last point to this, and this goes back, of course, to not censoring speech, and of course, one of my oldest videos, way back at the beginning, where I talked about the hardware store owner in Tennessee who put up the "No Gays Allowed" sign. If you are in the community, the T and the Q and the plus, or any of that community, and you know this person hates you, why would you want to reward this person with business? Why would you want to do that to yourself and put yourself in that situation to be confrontational, other than the fact that the government says that you can? Why would you ever want to associate with that kind of person? That's something I've questioned ever since we had the Bake the Cake bigot case back before I started doing YouTube videos. Why would you ever want to associate with somebody who you think is a hateful bigot because he happens to worship at the cross? I've never understood the desire to go back and do that and reward these people with money. That you could go back and reward to somebody who will just come in and say, hey, come on in, everybody welcome. You would think if you were in that community, that's who you would want to reward. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I think rationally. I didn't spend money in Dane County from the moment that they put the mask mandate in Dane County, because I knew that those government people, the people in government in Dane County, hated me, and I didn't think that they deserved my tax revenue. I didn't come out and advocate and try to force Dane County to take down the mask mandate. I said, okay, you can have it. You have the extremely liberal city of Madison. I'm just not going to spend any money here. When I see a business that says, we believe that, and they have the big rainbow sign out front, I don't spend money in that business. You know why? Because I know that that person hates me and my lifestyle. And I don't reward that person with my money. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about that too a little bit, Mr. Scott, although I do have a Prime account already. But the countertop still that I want is on sale on Prime Day. And I've got the cash for it right now. Then I can start practicing to one day open up the greatest distillery in all the U.S. The Advocate weighing in on this again with the Michigan AG this time. Michigan AG, salon owners' refusal of service to transgender clients is unacceptable. From Christopher Wiggins again. Michigan's AG has taken notice of comments made by the owner of a hair salon and beauty store in Traverse City. Christine Geiger stated publicly that from now on she wouldn't refuse some would-be customers because she said it was her First Amendment right to fight woke liberal ideology by refusing service to transgender and other alphabet people who she believes are pedophiles. In the wake of the Supreme Court decision 303 Creative versus Alanis, when the conservative majority ruled that Colorado web designer could refuse to make a website for a same-sex couple's wedding because forcing her to make such a website would violate her rights against compelled speech, the owner of Studio 8 Hair Lab, Christine Geiger, posted on Facebook this week that some of the LGBTQ community were unwelcome in her business. That, by the way, is a little bit different. It's not completely different, but it is a little bit different. Because what, we'll use Masterpiece because that's a better example for this. What Christine Geiger is doing here would be more akin to if the Masterpiece cake baker had said, you can't buy any cakes here whatsoever unless you are straight. And if you listen to the left, straight and white. What she's doing here with the TQ Plus would be more akin to if he'd refused service to all of them, which may be where some of this is actually going to come into some hairy territory, especially in liberal Michigan. Whereas what 303 Creatives was more akin to was just, okay, you can come in and buy anything that you want off the shelf, I just won't make a custom cake to celebrate your wedding, but anything on the shelf you are welcome to. Buy as much as you want. I'll even cut you a discount. But I won't do a custom for you. So, that is what they are saying with that. A mayor in Newport, in Oregon, getting into the news today. From OBP, Newport mayor apologizes, agrees to step down over hateful Facebook posts. From Jonathan Levinson. Newport Mayor Dean Sawyer resigned on Monday, 3 days after OPB revealed that he'd been posting offensive content in a private Facebook group for current and former law enforcement officers. Yeah, see, you shouldn't do that, especially if you're a public office, because somebody's going to come in, and I understand your freedom of speech even in a public office, but somebody's going to come in, and if you don't come back and resign outright, you'll get protests outside of your office, and you're going to make it really, really, really hard to get elected next time through. Sawyer notified City Manager Spencer Nabel and City Council President Jan Kaplan of his resignation in an email just before 0900. I am sorry in its simplest forms and sincerest form, the email opens. Well, and the worst part is, even if it's a private group, that's in writing. And archives are forever. Like, it's one thing if you put the elbow in to somebody and say, hey, check out that thing that I can't say on YouTube. Check that out right there. Isn't that funny? But it's something completely different if somebody has the visual evidence of it. I mean, the only way that you get in trouble for the example I just gave is if somebody were recording you and you're in a one-party consent state and you didn't know about it. Sawyer said leading the city has been one of the better periods of his life and that he wanted to make it a better place for everyone. I now realize that some of my actions and my words have hurt people I love and care about, he wrote. This is something that I take full responsibility for. Since at least 2016, Sawyer has shared memes and posts denigrating women, immigrants, and non-English speakers, and the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYMAPAEIOU sometimes Y community in a 39,000 member Facebook group. Yeah, that was probably not the smartest way to do that. And I am well aware of some of the rules that are going to have to change in my Discord if that ever takes off, if this show ever takes off big. Many of Sawyer's recent posts specifically target the transgender community. Sawyer did not respond to emails or phone calls. His resignation was first reported by the Oregonian. Last week he told OPB the private messages did not reflect his personal values. Then why the hell did you post them? And give yourself visual evidence of it. Again, there's a big difference between going up to one of your friends and saying, check out that guy over there, that's that thing I probably still can't say on YouTube. And, oh, here's 39,000 people that I guarantee I don't know all of. Let me pour something out that I don't even believe in, just to see if I can be an edgelord or something. Come on. Moving on back towards closer to home here, my neighboring state, Iowa. From KCCI 8, Iowa legislature passes abortion restrictions bill, and it goes to the governor's desk with no author given. An anonymous source, like Mogwai's cat. A bill restricting abortion in Iowa is headed to the governor's desk following a special legislative session on Tuesday. House File 732, known as the Fetal Heartbeat Bill, would ban abortion once cardiac activity is detected. Doctors say this happens around 6 weeks. The House passed the bill in a 56-34 vote shortly after 2100 hours on Tuesday. The bill then moved to the Senate, which passed the bill in a 32-17 vote at 2300 hours on Tuesday. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds plans to sign House File 732 into law Friday during a family leadership summit at the Community Choice Credit Union Convention Center in Des Moines. Once signed, the bill will go into effect immediately, so there's not even a weigh-in period for this. The bill includes exemptions for rape, incest, and medical emergencies that threaten the life of the mother, although when our friends on the left report this, they're going to leave that particular sentence out. In the bill, rape would need to be reported within 45 days, and incest would need to be reported within 140 days. On Tuesday, a public hearing was held to allow Iowans to weigh in on the proposed legislation. During the hearing, speakers alternated between supporters and opponents of the bill. Throughout the day, protesters were in the Capitol Rotunda chanting, "Let us in, let us speak." The room that the public hearing was held in has a max occupancy of 85 people. The lawmakers didn't allow more members of the crowd in. Iowans speaking at the public hearing had to sign up ahead of time. Which that in and of itself I think is a little shady, because you do have the right to redress your grievances against the government. However despicable your grievances against the government are, in this case wanting to slaughter children up until birth, you have the right to redress grievances against the government. Not just if you're on the select list of 85 people. Lawmakers spent more than 5 hours on the House and Senate floor locked in the debate over access to abortion. There are women who will have husbands who will kill them if they carry a pregnancy to term. Well, you need a restraining order and a divorce at that time. Are you serious? There are women who will have parents who will kick them out on the street if they carry a pregnancy to term. House Minority Leader Jennifer Confirst said, by the way, a guy who would murder his wife over carrying a kid to term deserves the same fate as the pedophile. Feet first, still alive. When a life is determined to be over, the heartbeat ends. Then why would a life not begin when a heartbeat is detected? Unless action is taken to end the heartbeat, it is human life that deserves to live and have the opportunity to reach his or her full potential. Republican Senator Chris Cornoyer said. A Des Moines Register Mediacom Iowa poll released in March showed a majority of Iowans were against restricting abortion. 21% of respondents said the abortion should be legal in all cases, and 40% said abortion should be legal in most cases. And I still think, honestly, and this is not what I want, obviously, I want there to be no abortion whatsoever, but I want it to be on a societal level, not a legal level, because those crooked politicians will always find a loophole to protect their mistresses and their kids. So I don't trust the government in any of these cases. But outside of what I want, I think the general consensus around this country would be somewhere between 6 and 18 weeks. Most places, most people landing on 12. I mean, we talk about the extreme outliers of the pro-aborts who want to be able to kill up until the moment of birth because it makes them feel empowered. But they are a staunch minority who were forced into the limelight because of Ralph Northam and his insanely stupid ideas on, hey, we might even have to keep it comfortable after it was born. But those people are a very, very tiny minority. I would honestly say that the vast majority of people, first trimester is where they want to see it. Again, I don't want to see any of it. But that's what shame is for. And we used to have that in this country. On Twitter, Confirst said the Iowans who submitted comments online on the bill, 96%, 1,025 Iowans were against the bill, and 4% were for the bill. Well, it was the House Democrats were the ones who brought that forward too, so there may be some sampling bias there. So, that is Iowa. But the ACLU is already suing from the Des Moines Register, a division of the USA Today. Abortion providers, ACLU, sue to block Iowa's new 6-week fetal heartbeat abortion ban. From Katie Aiken and Stephen Gruber Miller. Abortion providers and the ACLU of Iowa have filed a lawsuit to halt Iowa legislation that would ban most abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy when cardiac activity is detected in the embryo. The Iowa legislature approved the fetal heartbeat bill on Tuesday in an all-day special session. When Kim Reynolds signs it into law on Friday, Iowa doctors will be forbidden from performing abortions after cardiac activity is detected during an abdominal ultrasound. The ban includes limited exceptions to preserve the life of a mother and for pregnancies resulting from rape or incest. The medical providers will say the law will prohibit most abortions after about 6 weeks of gestation, measured as 6 weeks from the first day of the pregnant person's last menstrual period. From Planned Parenthood of the Heartland, Emma Goldman Clinic, and the ACLU of Iowa have challenged the law on Wednesday. They're asking a Polk County District Judge to temporarily block from taking into effect and hear arguments to determine whether the law is constitutional. It is, by the way, because of Dobbs. If the abortion ban goes into effect, it will place an unacceptable burden on patients' ability to access essential abortion care, especially those who already face systemic inequities. Planned Parenthood North Central States President Ruth Richardson said in a statement, "Hundreds of Iowans will be impacted in mere weeks. We refuse to stand idly by and will fight every step of the way to block this abortion ban and restore Iowans' rights." That is such a weird position to come from, honestly. I've never understood. It's never occurred to me to want to slaughter a child. I am working on finding volunteer time for crisis pregnancy centers, thanks to a suggestion from the wonderful soup anarchist over on Twitter, Jessica Green. And I've found some in my area too, even some that are not Catholic, because that is something that we should be doing more of. Absolutely. But they're protesting because, well, Moloch will be pleased. Let's talk about Kevin McCarthy from ABC News. McCarthy working to satisfy GOP hardliners demanding culture war amendments to defense bill. From Lauren Peller. The House on Wednesday cleared its first procedural hurdle in the National Defense Authorization Act, approving a rule on non-controversial amendments to the annual military spending and budget bill. But the fight continues as Republicans remain far from an agreement on how to tackle issues including abortion, diversity at the Pentagon, and Ukraine funding, all of which could tank the legislation. I'm going to stop right here and remind the Freedom Caucus that if you go too hard on a national ban that most of you said not that long ago was a states' right issue, you will lose in perpetuity for the next 50 years. Just putting that out there for you. Be careful where you go on that issue. Yeah, Mogwai points out perfectly. Some of the same political figures that are against abortion are the first ones to offer a coat hanger to their mistresses, which is why I said those government bastards will be the first ones to make a carve-out to protect their own, while the rest of you have to carry to term whether you like it or not. Their people will be protected from it. They'll be exempt from it, including, yes, their mistresses and their kids. Facing another test of how he can corral his party, McCarthy is working with GOP leadership to navigate through the rest of the amendments for the defense bill while having ongoing meetings and talks with the hardline conservatives we're proposing controversial changes. We could always just, tank the defense bill. We spend way too much on the Pentagon in this country. We did the first part now. We have 1,500 amendments. It takes a lot of time to work through all of it, McCarthy said. The amendments include gutting military diversity programs, reversing a policy to reimburse service members for travel expenses if they get an abortion, reinstating troops who refuse to comply with the Pentagon's Pinko-Pox vaccine mandate, and limiting funds for further assistance to Ukraine, like providing cluster bombs, which are banned by numerous other countries. Chip Roy said on Wednesday the House GOP is still trying to figure out how we're going to pull all that together and get it across the finish line. There's obviously a lot of hot button issues you all know that need to be addressed and dealt with, he said, listing items like abortion access, climate change, and the transgender community. Majority Leader Steve Scalise said leadership is having ongoing discussions with the right-wing lawmakers, including Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, about the proposed amendments. We're going to work through the process. If we can finish it all this week, then we will. If it takes more time, then we'll take it, right? Scalise said. During the weekly GOP conference meeting, McCarthy warned against amendments that would complicate or slow down the NDAA. Nancy Mace of South Carolina said Republican leaders and members have been encouraging the conference to push the NDAA forward. There is nothing more that we need to do as a nation other than to prepare and ready our defense forces. Whether it's here or abroad, we need to do this. We need to do this week and hope that we can get there, Mace said. What was the big one that so many Republicans, by the way, defected for and McCarthy needed all the Democrats for? I mean, we have so much news comes through here. I can't remember what the subject of that one was. Some Democrats have said they will vote against the NDAA if it includes the right-wing amendments. McCarthy has said that he hopes Democrats will still back the bill, while House Democrat Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar said members will vote their districts and their conscience. The details of these policies matter. Well, that's what you're supposed to do as a representative, is vote your district. Your conscience comes second, but vote your district. That's what you were put there for. You're a representative of their desires and their whims. That's literally your job. Got quite a few people coming in here, by the way. What are you guys having for dinner tonight? I want to see your dinner plans. Put them in the chat, no matter what platform you're on. So that is where we are at with that. For the culture wars stuff from Axios, McCarthy moves to punt culture wars past defense fight. From Andrew Solendar. Kevin McCarthy is attempting to keep votes on hot-button cultural issues from complicating Congress's efforts to pass a key bill setting military spending levels and policy. The right-wing House Freedom Caucus members who are pushing for those votes have proven willing to obstruct McCarthy's agenda. McCarthy, in a closed-door GOP conference meeting on Wednesday, made the case against the so-called Christmas tree bill bogged down by the amendments only tangentially related to defense, according to several members in the room. He got backup in an unlikely ally, Matt Gaetz, a habitual McCarthy antagonist, an Armed Services Committee member who spoke strongly in favor of the bill, according to two members. He said it's the most conservative National Defense Authorization Act he's been since he's been in Congress. Well, he's only been in Congress for 4 years, so that's not really saying much. The other Freedom Caucus members left the meeting saying that they expect the bill to pass. I think we're going to get there, said Byron Donalds. Yes, but Donalds said there are still other members of the caucus who don't sit on armed services who want to see additional work done on the bill. Well, and again, the problem with this, of course, is they're sitting here with no guarantee that they'll get any of their agenda that they promised their constituents that they would get, and the only thing that they have is to hold things like this hostage, the NDAA hostage. Give us what we want, or we won't vote for it. And you don't have very many votes to lose. You can lose, 4 votes they should hold it hostage. Oof. The Mogwai says, Lindy Graham once went to Wednesday's. He was very disappointed when he learned that a Dave's Double was only a burger. Oof. Big oof. Still looming is the threat of hardliners taking a procedural vote to advance the bill as they did with a different legislation in June. I think they'll tell us what this is. The debt ceiling, that was what it was. That was it. It was the debt ceiling that the Democrats hated but still voted for. Which they were absolutely right to try to tank. The Armed Services Committee passed the bill 58-1 last month despite adding in GOP language targeting so-called woke military policies. Well, of course, but as soon as we start spending the government money on more munitions and spending more of it at Raytheon, the people on the Armed Services Committee get their stipend check and their dividends from their Raytheon and Lockheed Martin stock. So of course it's going to pass 58-1. They haven't been giving dividends for how long at this point? From Politico, more McCarthy news. McCarthy confronts bleak reality as conservatives undercut GOP agenda. From Sarah Ferris and Olivia Beavers. The conservative fever that's plagued Kevin McCarthy for weeks is showing no signs of breaking. McCarthy and his leadership team returned to Washington this week, planning to tee up the GOP's biggest must-pass bills of the year, only to slam into a wall of resistance from familiar antagonists on the right. The Speaker's first problem is urgent. A small band of ultra-conservatives. No, there's no such thing as an ultra-conservative. Mainly the House Freedom Caucus has turned a routine Pentagon policy bill into a major headache for the party leaders as they press for contentious votes on abortion, troops, and affirmative action. The drama isn't over yet, with the right's ever-growing slate of demands increasingly likely to delay final votes on the bill until next week, and its ultimate passage still a question mark, but conservatives are plotting other problems to come for McCarthy, who has precious little floor time left and an entire government to try to fund before the current cash expires on September 30th. Well, these people again got elected to enact a certain agenda that typically stands in stark contrast with the conservative agenda, the GOP agenda. So yes, they're going to try to push and do whatever they can to get what their constituents want and need. And what else do they do other than try to hold up what the establishment GOP wants to get done? You want our votes? You do something for us. Democrats have been doing this for years. From Axios. Green basks in free agent status as McCarthy hosts fundraiser for her. Yeah, she is what I've always known her to be. She is a plant. From Andrew Solander, again over at Axios. Marjorie Taylor Greene on Wednesday signaled little appetite for rejoining the House Freedom Caucus, saying that she prefers being a free agent. She's not a free agent, though. She was an establishment plant. I thought she was a Democrat plant at first, but she seems to be more of an establishment plant who came in and made a bunch of headlines saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna say everything that them there old MAGA people want me to say here, and it's gonna be that, it's gonna be my thing, man. Look at me. Look at how much I love President Trump, and I must be evil. You should probably talk about me all the time and get all the controversy focused around me, because if I get my way, then the evil MAGA will take over the country," and a host of bullshit like that. Only for her to come back in and take up the establishment line once again. I never trusted that one from the start. You can go back and ask Elaine when we first found out who she was, when she introduced the articles of impeachment on her literal first day in office against a president who hadn't even been seated yet. She's not a free agent. She is one of the establishment. It's like, I don't know if you guys have seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel before. I don't know if you guys have seen that show. I understand it's kind of a girl power show, and I still think it's hilarious. And you're not going to change my mind on that either. But Sophie on that show, who's played by Jane Lynch. Is it Sophie Lewis? Sophie Evans? I can't remember what the surname is of that character. Jane Lynch, Mrs. Maisel character. Sophie Lennon. That's what it was. It's like Sophie Lennon on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, who comes out and does her comedy bit as this working class, never been rich, and talks like the working class people, acts like the working class people, comes out in a fat suit and the flannel shirt and the bandana because it was the she was the poor person, even the country person in the 50s when the show takes place. Whereas when you go and meet her in private, which we as the viewer and then Mrs. Maisel and her agent go back and do later on in the show, you see a refined person sitting at the table eating quail in a dress that costs more than our houses, adjusted for inflation, of course, speaking softly and smoothly with the proper etiquette of everything that she has been brought up to in a posh lifestyle in New York. That's when I started to see Sophie Lennon. That's what I started. That was about the time that Marjorie Taylor Greene started to shed her skin and show her true colors, and that's what I'm starting to think that Marjorie was at the beginning, from the start. She comes back and she plays the I'm a MAGA, I'm a racist redneck from North Georgia, and come back and vote for me because I'm going to do the MAGA agenda. But now that she's getting power and attention from McCarthy and being kicked from the Freedom Caucus at this point, she's letting her true colors, her true face show. Again, never trusted this woman. Getting her kicked off the Freedom Caucus was probably something that should have been done 2 years ago at this point. And people like Cat Turtle still defend her. That's the worst part of it. Alright, what do we got left? Another half hour. We'll probably finish everything up today. Chicago suburb starts making $25,000 reparations payouts in a test run for the whole country. From Lee Brown. A suburb of Chicago has become the first to start paying reparations to qualified black residents and was being seen as a test run for the whole country. So again, taxpayer dollars from people who never owned slaves are going to go to people who were never a slave, and they're going to call that reparations. I call that vote buying. The city of Evanston has already paid 16 locals from a $10 million package. First approved in 2019, the Evanston Roundtable set on Monday. By the end of the year, the Reparations Committee expects to have paid $25,000 to each of 140 qualifying residents in the city of about 75,000 people, officials told the Wall Street Journal. And the worst part is that's just going to make the rich richer. Just like COVID spending. And COVID stimulus. I see it as like a test run for the whole country, Justin Hansford, head of the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center at Howard University, told the paper. Those qualifying had to be at least 18 and living in the city between 1919 and 1969 when the city passed a fair housing ordinance, the Wall Street Journal said, which is ridiculous because they have to be at least 18 but still living in the city before 1969. Which, for those of you keeping score at home, is 54 years ago. I don't think anybody thought that one through, honestly. So you have to be at least 54 and have lived in the city in that 50-year time span. The $10 million fund was initially supposed to come from tax cash from legal marijuana sales. When that proved too slow, the council agreed to allot real estate transfer tax money from properties worth more than $1 million. Which is Evanston, is most of the properties. So far, just under $1.2 million has been gathered for it. Tashika Care, which is why they've only paid out a handful of people for this. Assistant to the city manager told a meeting last week. Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss said the city is not concerned over whether reparations are paid out elsewhere, including on a federal level. And yet they're still trying to come out and say that this is a test run. And again, I can't even begin to imagine how this could go horrifically wrong with a challenge on equal protection grounds on top of it. And the vast majority of this money is just going to go get spent at your local big box store and go back into the hands of rich people anyway. Congratulations, you played yourselves. Let's talk about the anti-Amazon from Axios to start with. Anti-woke movement finds itself an investment vehicle. This article is from a month ago, but this company is actually set to launch, I think today. From Dan Premack. Posted, they don't give me the date on this. Oh, 5/31. It's in the URL, but it's not on the article itself. So this is from March 31st, or May 31st rather. Want to invest in the right-wing blowback to a corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts? There's an SPAC for that. It's called Columbia Acquisition Group, and earlier this year agreed to merge with Public SQ, an online marketplace for companies in what it calls the Patriot economy. If the deal closes, the combined company's board will include failed U.S. Senate candidate Blake Masters and former Mike Pence strategist Nick Ayers. This comes at a time when the anti-LGBTQI, RA, MIGI, XTBY, AEIOU, sometimes Y activists have helped tank stock prices for companies like Anheuser-Busch, InBev, and Target. Public SQ, which includes a section titled Ditch Target 2.0, claims a 30% month-over-month user growth, now over 700,000, and a 19% month-over-month business growth rate over 50K over the past year. Last week it briefly rose to number 4 in Apple's App Store ahead of Amazon and Walmart, although by yesterday it had fallen back to number 60. Anytime Target pulls a target, it's kind of a reminder of our consumers of, hey, there's maybe some other options that out there that you should pursue, Public SQ CEO Michael Seifert tells Axios. And that is them first talking about this on a very, very left-leaning publication. But Outkick, on a more contemporary article from today, meet Public SQ, the conservative alternative to Amazon. Public SQ brands itself as a pro-life, pro-family, and pro-freedom patriotic parallel economy. We're going after Amazon, CEO and founder Michael Seifert told National Review last month. Public SQ cannot compete one-to-one with Amazon. No one can. Amazon is the most monolithic tech company in the country. Amazon is the default online marketplace. But Amazon has long engaged in politically motivated governance, from blocking ads to suppressing book sales to manipulating the ranking of items, so a conservative counterpart is not without a market demand. Public SQ can fill market demand in some ways it already has. Already, Public SQ has accumulated over 1.1 million consumer users and 55,000 businesses since its launch on July 4th, 2022. Monday, Seifert announced the company would go public through the SPAC Columbia Acquisition Corp. On July 20th. So in 8 days, you can buy stock in this if you so desire. And again, a big notion here. They're fully admitting that they may not be able to compete with Amazon because it's so big, it's so monolithic. But it gives people an option instead of just saying, okay, well, I still have to go to Amazon. I don't have a choice. They have a choice. They can go look on Public SQ first. And if it's not there, then they go to Amazon. But they have an option, especially on some marketplaces, to not give money to people that hate them. It's the same thing that I say at the top of the show, and this keeps coming up here. I said I was going to uninstall that last night, and I never got around to it. But stop giving your money to people who hate you. Don't do it anymore. Whether you're looking for a bank, new meat, subscription boxes, or hair care products, or pants, or a lot of clothing, you name it, we've got it represented on the platforms that's ciphered. A woman named Anna Pearson launched the skincare small business Root Apothecary in 2022. She added it to the Public SQ in May 2023 to the following success. My products sell out in under 2 minutes almost every time I do a merchandise drop, so it's hard to know if I've gotten new customers from Public Square and told National Review. So definitely something worth looking into. I've not looked into it yet, but it's something that I'm definitely going to look at for this. And the last one that we'll do on news for the day comes to us from NPC News. California hotel workers on strike demand higher wages and a chance to live closer to work. Why? Get out of the city if you can afford it. Get out of that area. It sucks. Although it does look like some of them are trying to get to Orange County, which is probably better than LA County. From Edwin Flores. A second wave of hotel strikes is hitting Southern California this week. Hotel workers and labor organizers have been striking, demanding higher wages and other benefits, as they argue their existing salaries are unsustainable amid the region's high cost of living and rent, making commutes and buying basic goods unsustainable. Is there, and I don't know the answer to this question, but if you're at a hotel like this in LA, is there an option for room and board, like to be a live-in worker? Is that a thing? I think that they do that at the Opryland in Nashville. At least for starters, because I know that they pull talent from literally all over the world. So I don't know if they've got a room and board program for that. But could that not be an option for at least some of the people? And I know it won't work for everybody. You got the family, you've got kids. You're going to want the full wage to go back and be able to feed them or not be confined to a small room, much like the one I'm confined to. Irene Andrade, 53, has worked as a housekeeper in the Sheraton Gateway next to LA International for 17 years. She used to live in nearby Inglewood, but she moved to Ontario in San Bernardino County to be able to afford rent. She said she spends several hours commuting to and from work. She's on the road at 5 a.m. and gets home around 7 p.m. She hardly gets to see her 7-year-old daughter. It's very important to me, but I have to fight to get ahead. I am losing here to go to work. She said about her inability to spend more time with her family, but I have to. Unite Here, Local 11, which represents more than 32,000 hospitality workers across SoCal and Arizona, many of whom are Latino and people of color, coordinated the latest multi-day strikes affecting at least 12 hotels on Monday and Tuesday near the LA airport and cities in Orange County. So, there are a few things with this. I mean, there's rising costs, there's rising ability to do so. And I thought Gavin Newsom's economics were going to be there to save everybody and make everybody's life perfect and wonderful and amazing. And they'd all have equal jobs and they'd take down the rich. But again, that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. My question here, especially with the union, number one, is in a city and a county that does like to import workers from across the border. Is this going to be a situation where a lot of these people are setting themselves up to be replaced by somebody with questionable legal status who can't go to a labor board and say, hey, my wage sucks. Oh, well, let me just call INS on that then. Or I guess it's ICE now, not INS. Is that going to be a thing? My other question here, of course, is how many of these people are in that situation already that have unionized and wondering if they become too much trouble, will ICE be a thing? But that is what they want to do, and they want to go back and strike. So just be informed that if you go to stay in a hotel in Orange County or LA County, it might be dirty. And with that, we're actually going to head out of here for the night. I'm going to save these last two articles for tomorrow because I'm not going to use them for something that restores my faith in humanity. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about public SQ again because I think that's really important. That does restore my faith in humanity. So going back to public SQ, which, I mean, Axios wants to come back out and put this as the Gadsden flag and don't tread on me and these evil anarchists, when it couldn't really be further from the truth. Now, a lot of rules and a lot of restrictions are going to be a lot less and a lot different on public SQ than they would be on like Amazon or Target or something else like that. But the options are getting up there. Some of them are going to pass and some of them are going to fail. I mean, it's been something that I've been trying to do since the first time I turned on a webcam. Build a better news experience and a conglomerate of people who can give you the news that don't despise you in every part of your way of life, like companies like Amazon and Target do. And let's be completely honest, they do. Do I think that this overtakes Amazon? No, probably not. Do I think it gives Amazon a run for its money? No, probably not. But that's not the big point of this. And that's the same thing with some of the other things that I've looked for. Like, again, I want to start up Turns of Pages Productions. Get you a better news experience from people who are just like you. Will I be another CNN? Probably not, because that was something that was formed and formulated over 50 years with a lot of government input, something that I would refuse to take to begin with. And everything coming against me to do so. I know Locals has taken some of that government subsidy. I definitely know the Daily Wire has, especially coming from the RNC, because they report favorably on RNC candidates. Do I even think that we'll be able to rise up as a bunch of ragtag people and compete with the Daily Wire? I think that's actually feasible. It might take a very, very long time and just hitting those right formulas every single time. But I think it's something that could be feasible if we can get the YouTube restrictions off of this. Rumble, by the way, has been a massive help off of that. But that's the big thing that restores my faith in humanity, is that there are people out there that are making an attempt to give you another option than just going and being a slave to Bezos. We might see new operating systems pop up. Will they ever rise above the level of Android or Microsoft or iOS? Probably not, but they'll at least give people an option if they feel like these companies are putting their thumb on them. And that's what we need more of, options. Not necessarily the next monopolistic company, but an option, somewhere else for people to go who've been slighted by these companies, who feel that they don't reflect their values, who feel that these companies and the people who head these companies hate them. I make no qualms about the fact that Bezos, even though, again, I know he's not the CEO of Amazon anymore, if he found me and heard some of the things that I said about me, he'd probably maybe try to throw me $1 million to shut me up. Say, okay, I'll buy your webcam and your microphone for $1 million. Stop saying bad things about me. Or hire some goons to come out and break my legs. In a worst case scenario. But if I ever did feel slighted by Axios, I'm going to give Public SQ a try. I legitimately am. I want to see what they have to offer, I want to see what their potential is, and I want to see what they do. And other things out there. In the Anheuser-Busch era especially, I've said, and when I first said it, I was making a joke, but I said when I first moved here, explaining my political position to my new coworkers, I don't want to impose my will on anybody. I don't want to vote and force anybody to live life the way that I want them to live. I just want to live out somewhere on 100 acres and make liquor for the rest of my life. It was a joke, but then I looked into how easy it is to make liquor. And I started building a dream of a distillery. Not an anti-woke distillery, but just a distillery that's not run by people who are billionaires who hate everything about our ways of life. And I want to grow to a national level. I don't want to just be a regional carrier, but at the same time, I know that I'll have every advantage against me. Same with Public SQ. And they are going to be called the far-right site. They're going to be called the Nazi site. Just like Gab did. Well, Gab kind of is, but regardless. Just like Parler did. Just like Minds. Although Minds stayed below the water a lot. Like, there aren't a lot of people that know what Minds is. But just like BitChute, just like Rumble, just like everything else, where people want to go and support a company that doesn't completely hate you, that site gets called the Nazi site, the fascist site, the evil GOP site, the far right, the white supremacist site. Public SQ is going to take that same abuse, that same beating. But, you know, I don't give official advice at all, and I especially don't give official financial advice. But if you've got a second and a couple extra bucks and you want to spend it on something, before running to Amazon to go look at something, give these guys a look. See if they've got what you need. You might still have to go to Amazon for it, but give them your option first. I think it'll turn out well for you, and I think it'll turn out well for the rest of us as well. And with that, we're going to head out of here for the night. Bunch of people here tonight. It's always a good sign. Let's throw some outro music up. We got out of here a little bit early tonight, too. Only at 1:52, which by the time we get down and do the outro and find the raid and everything, we'll be probably right at that 2-hour mark. And we'll talk about Bank of America tomorrow. There's a reason I didn't want to talk about that, because I moved that and bumped that to be my thing that restores my faith in humanity segment, but I thought about that a little bit more, and there's a little bit of self-docs that goes on with that, and I don't want to use that for that. Let's get out of here. So, thank you everybody. It's been a great night. We got a lot done. We finished with the exception of 2 because of a change in plans at the last minute with everything for the night, but we've got some stuff probably to talk about tomorrow as well. So come back and join me at 6 p.m. Central Time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. It's going to be a lot of fun. Get some chat in here. We'll be talking about things that I like and things that I hate tomorrow night. So I definitely enjoy those nights as well. Absolutely. If you are on Twitch, stick around. We're going to go find somebody to raid over on the Twitch platform. It is going to be non-political, by the way, because that's the first thing that I want to do is find something. I want to find somebody playing Fallout as soon as we get done with this, because I sit down and talk about it for 2 hours. But if you're into that, come and join me for the raid on Twitch. Otherwise, we'll see you here tomorrow. And if you can't catch us all the way live through the entire live show, you can catch us back on demand on YouTube, on Rumble, on Odyssey, and on Facebook, or also on the audio platform on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. So go check me out over there, and we will see you here next time on Contemporary. And until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.